Sorry about that. I was muted. All right. What up, everybody? Let's try that again. Welcome to another Tuesday night edition of Yes, Cafecito and Canes. Cheers. And perfect timing. My guest right now is in the backstage. But before I bring him on, just wanted to kind of, cover really quick the recruiting news that just broke. Tyler Williams, of course, um, from what I'm reading, just chose Georgia as his destination. So he's verbally committed to UGA. It's a shame. Yeah, I think that loss definitely had something to do with that. Even if we won, it would have been a battle because Georgia's the number one program in the country right now. So that loss definitely hurt. We would have had a chance if we took care of business on Saturday, but that did not happen. But anyway, we'll talk about that and more with my guest right now. Now, who is my guest? My guest tonight actually is Brendan Tobin, who you guys might know who he is. He's actually, I just saw on his channel earlier that he and Leroy are moving their show to 560 QAM. So congrats to him. I'll let him explain all that stuff. For those who don't know who he is, he'll explain all that stuff to you. So without any further ado, let me bring my guest on. Mr. Tobin.
What's going on? How are you?
What's going on, man? Thanks for coming on, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate the invite, man. It's a quiet week for me, an unexpected quiet week for me. So happy to hop on.
Awesome, man. Awesome. So yeah, for those, I'm sure most of the chat is familiar with your work, knows who you are. But for those who don't know, please fill them in, let them know who you are and where they can, find your content.
Yeah, I have a ton of content all over, but I've been doing sports radio in Miami for a long time, mostly with 790, all really with 790 The Ticket. And, for a long time, I was a morning show producer with Zazzle and Brett Romberg. Then I broke off, did some hosting with my co-host Leroy Horde. And we were the morning show host for 790 for the last 3 years. And just found out last week they are going to be moving us on over to WQAM, to the Canes flagship, which we're excited about. We'll be doing 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. live, which everybody can watch on the YouTube page for QAM and on Twitch also. And, all your podcast platforms, people can get us there as well.
Nice. Well, as far as on the Dolphins side of things, that's, hey, at least we have something to celebrate there football wise. At least on Sundays, we got something to watch again. Because if both teams were bad, I don't know what I would have done with myself.
Yeah,
it's great. It's good to see that at least, the Tua haters can shut up a little bit.
It's definitely been an exciting, exceeding expectations stuff for the Dolphins.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been super cool. The city seems on fire about it. And it definitely healed the pain of the weekend for sure, because I don't know what the hell I watched on Saturday, but it was, but the Dolphins have definitely been, I think people thought they were going to be good, but I think that this start is between how wild the comeback win was and then holding off the Super Bowl favorites. It's had to just exceed everybody's expectations so far.
Yeah, man. So speaking of the debacle that was Saturday, let's jump right in. So I think this is a painful question that I think not many fans are. Something that not many fans want to hear or are ready to admit. I'm ready to admit it. I've probably been a Canes fan in denial for a while, but would you agree? We just don't have a very good football team.
No, I would agree with that. I don't think it's I think that the problem with it for a while has been because that brand is so historic and we know what the talent base is down here. I think for a long, and I think also we saw for a while NFL guys were going to the NFL and they were, sometimes exceeding what they were doing in the pros and what they were even doing in the program, or because of their success in the pros, we didn't understand why the program wasn't having more success. And I think the difference with this year is I'm watching them from week to week. I'm just I just don't find them to be very talented. And I think that I went into this year with a lot more faith because of a couple things. Mario had the resume. Mario, I think, was the guy everybody basically wanted to be the caretaker of this and to bring it into big boy football. And so, yeah, he's got a resume. Everybody knows what an outstanding recruiter he is. So that has credibility. And then, we all thought that the quarterback thing was solved. I mean, Tyler Van Dyke getting draft hype before the season and the kind of big plays that he would come through with, you knew that the skill guys weren't going to be as good, but you kind of thought like, all right, well, you know what? He's going to be able to make some things happen with it. And yeah, it's just been, you just watch them week in and week out. You're just like, I just don't think this team is very explosive. I don't think that they're very talented. And so while there's still never an excuse for a Miami team to lose to a Middle Tennessee State, especially in that fashion, I'm with you, man. I haven't been very impressed all year.
Yeah, I think it's okay. It's safe to say and okay to say that, you could look at that as loss as unacceptable. Like, you're right, a Miami team as physically talented, even with the raw ability that those players have, should not be losing that game. I mean, we were 26-point favorites according to Vegas.
Yep.
But at the same time, you could still, I looked at it like a day later, realistically, like, okay, we've seen this before. A new coach comes in, new regime, players from the old regime. If you don't have full buy-in, this is what happens. There's precedent for it. It's happened to coaches before.
Yeah, that's I think the thing that's troubling about it is like when you hear guys say, "Oh, we went into this cocky," or "We went into this with," nothing like. All right, I thought that like accountability and all that stuff that was going to be a lot of what Mario was going to bring to the table. Which I'm not saying he's not, but I just thought that he would kind of bring that in a lot quicker because this guy he's been the head dog at big schools. He's run programs before, whereas Manny was kind of maybe feeling himself, was kind of, faking it till you make it with some of his, boisterous, braggadocious type of ways. Mario's been very, business centric, and you kind of thought, all right, there's going to be, when you lose to Texas A&M, all right, it's ugly. It was undisciplined, and you let an opportunity slip away, but you'll forgive it. It's like it's a road game, SEC. That's fine. All right, we'll live with it. But when you're losing to teams like Middle Tennessee State and you're getting, run off the field, basically, you're getting blown off the line, you're just kind of left scrambling. Just like, well, what? All right, well, what is the landmark right now? How do we go from this is going to be a year of reestablishing things and putting some more pride into the program, and you got this maybe Heisman hopeful quarterback, and now it's like he's getting replaced and he's dogging the college atmosphere like in years past. It's like, all right, this is just definitely has not gone according to plan at all.
No, I think we all expected a much smoother start, but to be honest, football and life in general doesn't work that way. We should have expected some adversity, but I myself drank the Kool-Aid. I'm thinking, 9-3, 10-2, like 99% of the fan base did.
Of course, well, but especially like with the start of that schedule, I'm like, all right,
Right.
I'm even thinking to myself as a guy who has to watch everything. I'm like, do I have to watch this live? Can I watch it back the next morning? Like, like it's one of those where it's just like, well, I remember even thinking to my wife, she's like, oh, you want to do something that week? I'm like, yeah, take it on Middle Tennessee State. And then all of a sudden I look at my phone and I'm just like, it's 24. Like, I got to find out what the hell's happening here. And so like, I'm tuning in and I'm just watching bomb after bomb get chucked over, guys. I'm like, oh, what is this? Why are they faster than us? What's going on?
Yeah. I don't know if you follow that one account. He's like Mr. 30G or something like that he makes fun of. Like, if a team had a bad week, he'll pretend to be the coach watching film with the players. I don't know if you've seen it. It is hilarious. And
I don't even know if I could stomach that, but
I think I shared it on my stories. If I find it, I'll DM it to you. But I had to find some humor in some, but it was pretty funny. But yeah, like, dude, on our own, we have them on their own 2-yard line. First play of the game, they're bombing one over the top on us. It's like, that is even a subpar Hurricanes team. That's just not Hurricanes football. Like, it was happening and I couldn't believe it. It was just odd.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy to think about that. Like, you're paying a team $1.5 million to come in there for some work, and they work you like that. Look, I think the thing that's crazy about it is, okay, we see this even in college football. Like, look, the Sun Belts, come up with crazy wins. You'll have these Appalachian States roll in there and beat some teams. That's fine. But damn, man, like you weren't even in that game at all. Like, you needed, you were like praying for a miracle comeback from your backup quarterback. And that, I think, is what is so stark about you. People wonder, like, where do you rank this all time in program history. And I think maybe FIU feels worse because it's in their own backyard and that got rubbed into their faces a lot. And there's so many FIU alum down here. I think that's always going to probably go down as the worst one. But I think just the shock of watching this was pretty crazy. Like that it has to go up there with the all-time worst in program history.
It goes up there for sure. I still think FIU is the worst because to me that was also a shock. And also FIU, I think since that game has won like what, 2 games?
Yeah.
3 years ago.
That's embarrassing. And listen, it's in your backyard. It's on the grave site of the Orange Bowl. Like, yeah, I get all the sentiment behind it. But just seeing them just get run off the field and out muscled, just everything. They just got outplayed in every facet of it. Like the FIU game just had an air of like, oh, they're playing this game hungover. Let's just get through this. But you kind of never knew it was going to happen until it ended and it was over. This was just like, oh, my head was spinning.
Yeah, no, it just felt like when it was like 10-0, 17-3 around there, it just looked like they quit. It felt like the LSU Peach Bowl back in 05. I don't know if you remember that far back.
Yep.
I remember watching that game. I think we were down like 6-3 or 10-3 or something, and it already looked like we were quitting. Like it looked that bad. But anyway, speaking of like the quarterback situation and the OC situation, obviously Gaddis has come under fire big time for his I guess I don't know if you call it lack of aggressiveness. The route running isn't great. TVD being off certainly doesn't help. What do you attribute that to? Like what you've seen? Do you think it's more TVD than Gaddis? Do you think it's more Gaddis than TVD? You think it's 50-50? They're both kind of shooting each other in the foot. Like what do you see happening?
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it's been the perfect marriage. And I think with Gaddis, the thing that's interesting about it, and I talked to this with my co-host Leroy, because Leroy's a Michigan guy. He's got a lot of tie-ins there, and that, it didn't feel like I know he was pissed with how everything, if Harbaugh was out, flirting with the NFL and all that. And so, he didn't want it. There was a little bit of a rough end there for him as well.
Mm-hmm.
But, you see like Michigan, and they've gone Cupcake Central also to start this season, but they are putting up a heap of points on everybody. Like they're putting up like 55 plus every single week. So you're just like, well, they don't feel like they miss him that much with his with what's going on down here. So certainly it just feels like one of the things that you liked last year with TBD is this guy was ferocious throwing the ball down the field and his big playability. And now it just feels like you could just see the second guessing through him. And yeah, that definitely feels like kind of a void of, I don't know. The marriage doesn't seem like it's working out right. I don't know if this is an attitude thing with him, if he bought into his own hype. I don't know what the behind the scenes of it is with those guys, but we do see these marriages that do seem perfect for each other. And him and Rhett Lashley, like that seemed like something that was tailor made, especially with moving the ball fast, big plays. And I do think that everybody kind of liked that from Rhett. It was just the fact that Manny seems they couldn't stop a nosebleed. And it's just, I think that's one of the frustrating things too. It never seems like either of these units can just get on the same page. It's either, the defense is awful or the offense can't score. And now it seems like it might be a little bit of both, but to go from where he was, where, they have, Todd McShay breaking down where his draft potential is to, hey, he just hasn't looked. And I get it. Look, the skill guys aren't fantastic. Losing Restrepo's, a huge blow, but, even simple stuff looks really hard for him right now. And it doesn't look like he's got a whole lot of confidence with it. And I can't imagine getting benched is going to help with that.
No. And I really believe the whole Barstool thing that happened during the week didn't help. And I just think he's putting a lot of pressure on himself. You can tell with every missed throw, he's just pressing. He's visibly frustrated. So I don't mind the switch at quarterback when it happened. And I don't mind a little competition being opened up. I wouldn't just hand it to Garcia just yet. What do you think? Do you think they should just hand it to Garcia for a while, see what he does? Do you think they should open the competition?
I definitely think that seeing how things go in practice and seeing how guys are handling all of this adversity, especially him, because, I don't think they'll pull the plug on him immediately, but I do think that this is getting into, he's definitely got to be looking over his shoulder right away. because, Mario even said like TVD was one of the reasons he came down here, that this was a guy that he really believed in, and that I'm sure that is one of the attractions of being able to play with him. But if you don't handle all that stuff well, like it's cute being like, hey, this guy kind of came out of nowhere, knowing that he was highly touted, but it's just like, all right, TVD's out there, he's doing things. This is a season kind of lost, but hey, look at this quarterback, look at the talent he has. And then all the pressure then goes onto you, and you have all these expectations, and you got all these NIL deals, and you have everybody looking at you really as almost the savior of the U, because you knew you were losing a lot of talent, but it doesn't matter. We got Tyler Van Dyke. And for him not to live up to that, and not live up to it against these teams is what's disappointing about it. It's not like all right, you go out there and he's getting smoked by Clemson. All right, I get it. Texas A&M, tough atmosphere. That's where he likes to play, apparently, and prefers. That's what he said. But to have this be the output of that has just not been very impressive at all. So I think that you go with him, because I think that if you go full go, like, oh, we're done with him, I think that doesn't help anybody to show that you have that little faith in a guy that you were touting as the guy. But certainly it has to be hot seat time.
For sure. And that's a great point. You don't want to just, like, for what he's accomplished so far, I think he's at least earned the right to compete, to kind of try to earn his job back. He's at least earned that much. And people forget, he faced this adversity last year. His first couple of games, he didn't look very good.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, talked a little trash against NC State. All the NC State Twitter went nuts, and they went in on him. And what'd he do? He torched him for like 350 and 3 touchdowns. I was at that game. It was very fun. But, let's give the guy a chance, but also Garcia an equal chance. And Chris Gons made a good point there. The Virginia loss, final game at the Orange Bowl. I forgot about that one. That goes down there too.
Well, but this is the thing that's I think upsetting about it, right? Like, it goes from conference losses to Clemson blowout losses to you lose to FIU to now you're losing the Middle Tennessee State. Like, these schools are getting much more embarrassing by the year as the years go on. The brands that you're losing to, yes, that was humiliating to lose the final Orange Bowl game like that. Super painful, and embarrassing. Losing the way that they did to Clemson and Al Golden, and getting ousted by it. Super embarrassing. But then it's just like FIU and La Tech and Middle Tennessee. Like, now this is becoming so regular. I remember when it was embarrassing losing to North Carolina, and now it's like, all right, now it's embarrassing. Yep. Now it's like, oh, I would kill to beat North Carolina, please.
Yeah. Speaking of, how are you feeling going in that game against North Carolina?
Not great, man. Not great. Like, my faith is shook. I'm like, everything that I had into this team going into the year, it wasn't like I wasn't sitting here thinking, all right, they're going to steamroll everybody. And but I was definitely like, I just felt comfortable. I'm just like, all right, how do you not feel good about what they had at the helm in Manny and how just lost he seemed? And just every time he lost a game, just was scrambling for answers or was making excuse after excuse. I'm like, the accountability that Mario has, like, that's going to take care of a lot. The kids are going to believe in him. He's got a quarterback. He's got this coaching staff they've invested in. He's got a crazy strength coach with a mustache. How could this go wrong? And, for these first few games, like, this was basically an NFL preseason schedule mixed in with a little bit of Texas A&M that even lost more pressure on it, because that was supposed to be, the publicized game that week. And, to lose in the fashion they did in that game, and then to have this happen, and then, I don't think they didn't, at one point we're trailing Southern Miss. Like, this is not what you thought it would be at all. And so, yeah, going into conference play where I'm thinking to myself, like, come on, dude, this has got to be, man, Mario's got this, gonna have this at least handled going into conference play. Now I'm just like, I got to see it all looking like it can play together now.
At worst, I was thinking, okay, conference play 6-2, 5-3, 5-3 worst case. That still might even be enough to win the Coastal, but I'm with you, man. I don't feel as confident, but if we all of a sudden kind of turn it around and go on a run, that would not shock me either, because last year's run, second half of the season, came out of nowhere. So, I'll try to, end on a more positive note here. Obviously, this is a damaging loss. I think it shortens Mario's leash just a little bit. Obviously, everyone's going to give him the 3-4 years, get his recruiting classes in there. I think it shortens the leash a little bit. I think this loss hurts in that way, but I think long-term, he's still the guy. Whether or not Gaddis is the right guy at OC remains to be seen. But even with this, I still feel comfortable with Mario at the helm to eventually turn the ship around. What do you think about that?
I don't disagree. I think the thing that's interesting about this, and I kind of noticed this with a lot of the reaction on social media after, which could definitely be an echo chamber and it can feel the same. But Mario is a Cane and has the backing of all of the alum right now. He has, and I think that could get to an awkward thing because, Randy had this too. He was a Cane. This is a beloved guy. But you even saw where it's as loony as he can be, Dan Silio's like, well, I had a conversation with Mario and this is what he said. You'll find who the rats are. Joaquin and Brett Romberg and all these guys, they all love Mario. So I think that's going to buy him something in that Mario can always put out the narrative. Oh, it was a lot worse than I thought it was with everything. But I do believe in him because the dude is a demon recruiter. And I think that if you the hope is he seals everything off here, he gets it back to state of Miami style. But the other thing is, secret's out. Everybody knows this is the hotbed too. It's so much competition down here, and it is not like it used to be. And so he does have his work cut out for him. And I do think you're right. Like when you have results like this can flip guys, and you do need to start showing people that, this can be an elite program again. Because, I'll tell you, when I go out to these Dolphins practices, it's not like it used to be where it was like, oh my God, dude, there's Frank Gore hanging out with Andre Johnson and they're all dapping up and they're all seeing each other and they're all throwing up the U. Now it's all Alabama guys, man. It's like it's Waddle hanging out with Tua, who's hanging out with Devontae Smith, who's hanging out with Raekwon Davis. It's all the Alabama guys. And it was like, that was a Canes thing. Like it was not just the fact that they went to the NFL. You went to the NFL and all the Canes guys were following each other and supporting each other. That's a Bama thing now. And that's the thing that's heartbreaking to see.
Yeah, no. And it's going to continue as long as Saban's there, in my opinion. But, like I said, I really believe Mario is I'm not saying he's going to lead us to a national championship, but I think, let's say he's here 5 years, which is, average tenure for a coach, 5-6 years. I think he at least turns the ship around and, gets the nose of the plane back up. Kind of like what Rick was doing, but, he had to step down because, maybe health concerns or whatever. I think he at least does that with, the facility that he's building. And I think he's going to leave the program better off than when he found it, which really that's all I want right now at this point.
Yeah, I feel like if he's not able to do it and get it right, and especially, let's be real about it. Like the investment that they've made seems like it's going. That does matter this day and age. So I think he will too. But this has definitely been off to a much bumpier start than I thought it would be.
Yeah, but anyway, Brendan, I don't want to have you on too long. I know you're a busy dude, but yeah, man, just thank you for taking the time to come on and talk some Canes football. I know you're a diehard fan. Obviously, you've been on the radio. Yeah, I've heard you on the radio over the years and stuff. You cover. I see all the logos behind you. You cover everybody, right? The Heat, Marlins, Dolphins, Panthers.
Well, it's very hard to cover the Marlins now, but yes,
it has been hard to cover the Marlins for 15 years.
Yes, a long time. But hey, I appreciate it, John. Thanks so much. That's an excellent show name, by the way. I love it, and I appreciate you having me on.
Cheers, man. All right, hope to have you on again soon. Thank you.
Absolutely,
Take care, man. All right. That was the one and only Brendan Tobin. You can hear him on 560 QAM, like he said, from the 10 to 2 hour, which is like, I know that's like prime time hour in the radio business. So congrats to him and Leroy. They have a great show together. He's very funny on his show. He does great post-game stuff for the Dolphins on his channel, so go follow him. Yes, thank you, Brendan. And yeah, I didn't. I put Mitch's comment up. I didn't actually read it. Miami's fans' logic, metaphor. It's cold out, and we're freezing. Bad playing or coaching. Let's burn the house. Fire coaches. Stay warm. Have no house. Needs to rebuild. Yeah, not sure what you're saying there, Mitch. You have to clarify a little bit. You kind of lost me with that one. I'm not gonna lie. Him and Leroy have a great show. Yes, they do. They do have a great show. I missed some comments. I think there was a dono back there. I like the new decor, John. Thank you. Yes, I moved recently, so I'm little by little building a nice little background here. My old place didn't really have a wall or a shelf behind me I can use. This one's much better. Yes, the Finns helmet, actually. Don't brag a little bit here. My uncle hooked it up years ago. Signed by, the glare's on it. Signed by my favorite Dolphin, Zach Thomas, who still not in the Hall of Fame, which is a crime. One of the best Mike linebackers of all time, and he was like 5'9". But yeah. And by the way, there's a reason I have this up. I'll fill you guys in at the end of the show. Let's see, Cuban Kane. He found this program with NFL prospect top 15 program, Coastal Division projected winner, multiple ACC teamers. Come on, he will get this program on track. But it was not empty. I agree that the cupboard was not empty. I think when Randy Shannon took over, boy, was the cupboard empty. And also he did not he didn't turn like his, how can I say this? How can I word this? The players didn't buy in. I remember back then. He took over in 2007. Half the players bought in, half didn't. I remember hearing, I knew some people kind of behind the scenes at the time. I remember hearing about that, and just a lot of players didn't like that Coker was fired when he was, because a lot of the players loved Larry Coker. Even though they weren't quite performing for him, a lot of the players loved him. He recruited a lot of them. So that first 2007 season when we went 5-7 and we had the embarrassing loss in the Orange Bowl, yeah, that was bad. But the cupboard was more bare. It was like we had like 3 safeties on the whole team. We had like 5 D tackles on the entire team, like scholarship D tackles. It was bad. And then, with those Northwestern classes and the recruiting that Shannon was able to do, he kind of filled the cupboard up a little bit. Had that nice 2009 season where Ja'Cory put up video game numbers. And then Golden took over. And it was kind of the same thing. Good recruiting, but nobody got developed. And, and so on. And so on it went. But, yeah, I don't think Cristobal inherited a team that was just barren of talent. You got the James Williamses and the Leonard Taylors and the Avante Williams of the world. You got, even though they haven't made explosive plays yet, you're coming in with 4-star guys like Romello Brinson, Jacoby George, who's hurt now. Solid quarterback room, solid running back room. You got Rooster, who's super explosive. Yeah, you're coming in with at least something to work with, he's thinking. But I don't think people realize it's not just what you have on paper. Even if you bring in some transfers, it's going to take time, because for people to buy in, and I know people, just kind of throw those words around and they don't really know what it means. What I think it means is, if you don't fully believe in what the coach is teaching, you're not going to do everything he's telling you to do. You're not going to put in the extra work. You're not going to go all out on a certain play. You're just not, because you're not as comfortable as you were with the last regime. And that's normal. Unless you have that, it's not going to be that smooth transition year one. Again, just for the record, I am not excusing the loss on Saturday. That was horrible and it was unacceptable. But what are we going to do? Fire the guy 4 games in? We got to take it and move on. Hopefully they learn from it. That's why I'm saying, Mario has had success at other places, not just Alabama, not just Oregon. Go all the way back to FIU. People like to look at the record, but they don't take into account the fact that the first 2 years at FIU, he inherited, it wasn't even a dumpster fire of a program. I couldn't say that because it wasn't even a program at the time. Their stadium drew like 48 people. It was worse than what Miami has now. Um, it wasn't even a stadium yet. I think the capacity was like 2,000, 3,000 people. They drew no one except family members of the players to their games. And they were going like 0 and 12, 1 and 11 every year. Then all of a sudden, Mario comes in, wins a few games, wins a few more games. They have this new stadium on campus. They start generating interest locally because at the time, Miami was kind of going down. That was post Larry Coker. And all of a sudden, Mario Cristobal takes an FIU program that just a few years before wasn't winning a game, and then goes in 3 years later, 4 years later, in 2010, wins a conference championship and wins a bowl game. Those were words that growing up as a youngster in Miami, I never thought I would say the words that FIU just won a bowl game. I never thought in my life I would say that. The only reason that happened was because of Mario Cristobal and what he built. So it is not out of the realm of possibility that even this year they go on a run. They win 5, 6 in a row. Do I think that's going to happen? Probably not. I don't think it's going to happen. But if it did, I'm saying it's not going to shock me either. Maybe because at this point nothing shocks me anymore. But anyway, I keep getting sidetracked. Sorry. Ohio Hurricane, thank you so much for the $5 dono. I think Garcia throws a more catchable ball than Van Dyke. When I was watching, you know what? I thought the same thing. I think TVD, not so much last year, but this year definitely puts a little too mustard sauce on his passes sometimes, especially the short ones over the middle. Kyle Wright kind of had that a little bit because, say what you want about Kyle Wright, but that dude had an absolute howitzer for a right arm. He just had an absolute cannon, can throw the ball a gajillion yards in the air. But you got to learn how to throw different pitches. In addition to the fastball, you got to throw the changeup too. You got to throw the off-speed pitches too. When the guy's 5-10 yards in front of you, it's got to be a nice, easy catchable ball. And I think Garcia does have a little bit better touch, especially now with I just think TVD's pressing. I think he's so amped up sometimes, like it's just not there for him at the moment. That doesn't mean he can't get it back. Rob Dukes agrees. What if he throws a pick six to start? Do we take him out? Oof. I don't know if you take him out after one throw. But yeah, I think you give him at least a quarter. And if he looks bad, then we'll see. Maybe they do the thing they did with Robert Marv and Ja'Cory Harris back in the day. They throw Robert Marv for a couple drives, Jake Garcia for a couple drives. Maybe they do it on a script. I don't agree with that, but maybe that's what they do. Or maybe the second quarter, they just give it to Garcia. If it were me, I ride the hot hand. If you start TVD and he starts out hot, leave him. Because that's one thing. That's why I hate doing it on a script. I remember it was against North Carolina, actually. Robert Marv opens the game with 2 straight touchdown drives. What does Coach Shannon do? Third drive, puts in Ja'Cory. Ruined the entire rhythm of the offense. I think we would have pulled away and ran away with that game. We ended up losing. That was back in 2008. Let Ponce make offense calls. I wouldn't be opposed to him having a say in the passing game coordination of things for sure. Got to get the trenches playing like the first 3 games. Yeah, look, I don't think it was all on the – yeah, there were plays where the O-line were kind of getting blown off the ball, but not that much. What was happening, looking at it closely, it was 5 or 6 linemen trying to block 8, 9 dudes. I mean, what are you going to do? And running backs not picking up blitzes, tight ends not chipping guys off the edge. That's why when, on a play action rollout, the linebacker, the DN is right in the quarterback's face. You got to at least chip that dude. You got to do something. We weren't even doing that. So, yeah, there was bad blocking, but it usually wasn't the linemen. The linemen, I think, were, for the most part, doing their job in this game. It wasn't, they weren't dominating the guy in front of them, but they were doing their job. It was more, from what I saw, was more tight ends and running backs not really hitting their assignments. Let's see what else we got here. Catching up. Ooh, I am way behind. Oh, Norman, thank you, sir, for the $12 donation. No comment, just a donation. Thank you for the support. Appreciate it. Bergie, Gaddis isn't going anywhere unless it's a complete and utter collapse. I disagree, Bergie, because I don't think this is another Manny Al Golden situation where he's going to stick with a guy and just run it into the ground with him. Because back with Al Golden and Mark D'Onofrio was his boy. That was his best friend. He wasn't going to fire him, unfortunately. If he did and got a new, better defensive coordinator, who knows? Al Golden might have stayed here a lot longer, honestly. Yeah, I don't think he just rides Gaddis into the ground this year. I think if it's not working, then at the end of the year, he'll make a change. You're right. I think it's got to be pretty bad, but if we go like 7-5 or something, or 6-6, and it's a lot of it is because we're just not scoring points. Mario's no dummy, dude. He may be a little stubborn about the running game thing, and you know what? That's fine. Some schools win that way. I don't care how we win. But I don't think he's too stubborn to just let a guy that's not doing a good job stay at that position. I think Mario's big on accountability, and I don't think he'll leave him there if it's bad enough. James needs to clean up the missed tackles. Dude's got big-time talent, and my favorite cane on D. I love James Williams' passion. I love the way he plays. He plays angry. He plays a little too angry sometimes, to the point that he kind of loses focus a little bit, throws a guy to the ground a little too hard. I don't think he should have been flagged for that play in Texas A&M. I thought that was not a penalty to me, but you got to be a little smarter than that. You got to know that, because of your reputation, going for the big hit, throwing a shoulder into somebody, refs are going to be looking at that. Just get the guy to the ground. The big hits will be there. Just, don't try to force it. Just wrap up and take the guy to the ground. That's your job. And make plays with the ball in the air. John, you're right. Exactly. I got caught up thinking this team had talent and Mario would have a solid season right off the bat. But in hindsight, this team is rebuilding. Look, culture, buy-in. I know those are terms that people don't like to hear, but I'm sorry. With you're inheriting a group of 80 scholarship guys and practice squad guys and everything. It is a large group of human beings you're coaching. It is a huge undertaking. And think about it. There was no accountability with this program, not just with the last regime, but probably regimes before that. We lacked accountability to a degree for a long, long, long time. And all of a sudden, we heard it with a few weeks back. I had Brian Monroe on. He's a former player. And, he has insight to what's going on behind the scenes. And he was saying, yeah, this whole, having Mario there now, and every time they make mistakes, they're running extra laps, doing hill runs and, throwing up. You go from no accountability to that. Realistically, do you think every player loves that? Probably not. You're talking a large group of kids. I'm sure a chunk of them. And all it takes is 10, 15 dudes not fully buying in to create little dissension, to create, that, lack of confidence, if you will, lack of, putting in the work. I'm not saying that's definitely happening, but the chances are very high. Look, come on, let's be real. Mario may have created the wrong mindset with these players right now. They think because they practice hard, they win. The opponent doesn't give a bleep how many gassers you did. Tough practices develop hard. Tough practices do develop hard. And glad you brought that up, Mitch. I remember, again, the you reloaded Drive for 5 or something like that. It's that hour-and-a-half documentary that's on YouTube that I've mentioned before. Go check it out because it really goes into those late 90s Canes when they were building the early 2000 dominant Canes. Those late 90s Canes, the amount of work and the gassers, the 110s that they ran in the summer, the amount of work that that was throughout the 90s. It didn't really show itself until finally, like 99, 2000 is when it started to show itself. Doesn't happen overnight. I wanted to believe it might. I wanted to believe that, maybe we'd see it right off the bat, and, that there's precedent for that, but there's also there's more precedent for, it's usually a bumpy start for a new coach. But for whatever reason in the NFL, look at Mike McDaniel. Sometimes right away. I don't know. Maybe it's because they're professionals and it's just different. But anyway, at the college level, that usually happens. James not wrapping up. It's simple. Technique gets ran over. Now, like I said, he plays a little too emotional. TVD deep balls off right now. TVD checking down all day. Sometimes he doesn't check down, Nashville. Sometimes there's plays where he should check down or look to his right and hit the outlet pass. Sometimes he doesn't. And sometimes he stares a guy down. What's happened in TVD reminds me of Chuck Knobloch. Ooh, throwback. Former Yankees second baseman. Not being able to throw from second base to first years back. Just couldn't get out of his head, and he showed in his play. Yeah, no, what Knobloch had was like a serious case of, that happens to certain baseball players, and it happens to kickers. It's just they get something in their head, and they can't do it anymore. They just lose it. Happened to Rick Ankiel. I remember that. It happened to, y'all remember Mike Vanderjagt, that old kicker for the Colts before Vinatieri went there? Mike Vanderjagt at one point was like the most accurate kicker in NFL history. And then within a few years, he couldn't make a kick like to save his life. Not an important one anyway. Do you all know Robert Marv is in prison as we did not know that. I think this offense fits TVD like our offense back in 03 fitted Grossman. Not good. What did Coker do during that UF game when we were down big? Yeah, he went to a no huddle spread offense and it worked. And it wasn't even called spread back then. We just went no huddle like a shotgun style offense. Yeah, and it worked. Let's see. They were stacking the box every time, and we just couldn't execute. Yeah, 100%. No, they just had a game plan of like, okay, here it is. We're going to come right after your quarterback, try to beat us. It was obvious what MTSU was doing, and we just had no answer for it at all whatsoever. It was really bad. Let's see. Bergie. That's what I mean this year. Sure, at the end of the year, anything could happen, just not right now. Let's see what else we got. Gio Kane, back to you. If you've already said it, I didn't hear it, but who starts versus NC? I think there's a competition during the week, and I'm not going to lie. I got a feeling they're going to go with both guys and see. I think this North Carolina game, the bye week along with the North Carolina game are both going to serve as an audition. They're going to use these next 2 or 3 weeks to figure it out. And I think coming out of the North Carolina game is when they'll know. For whatever reason, I don't feel like they're going to make a decision on one guy and stick with one guy until they see both of them kind of in the game situation. People are kind of thinking, they'll use the bye week to decide. That's when the competition will start. I think they're going to use this next game to kind of figure it out. And whoever's the hot hand, they just ride the hot hand. Gaddis definitely hasn't impressed me, regardless of drop passes, bad throws. Regardless of drop passes and bad throws, our D was good. Just got to want it, and the receiver wanted it more than our guys. No 2 stars should compete with us. There was definitely more want to on the field that I saw. Definitely a lot more. It just, like I said before, our guys just did not look like they wanted to be there. It reminded me a lot of that 05 Peach Bowl against LSU. Early in the game, we fall behind early, and it just unraveled from there. And you wanted to believe we were going to get it back. We were still, the score still wasn't like a blowout yet. We still had time, but you just, in the back of your mind, you knew it wasn't going to happen. John, teams are going to go deep on us for the explosive plays. Do you see changes in the backfield? You mean, do I see changes in like the secondary, the defensive backfield? I see I see certain corners going to be playing off the ball a little bit more because we were playing some press coverage on guys, and you could see certain players weren't quite ready for that press coverage. They weren't ready to play that press coverage because a couple of those deep balls were, especially one of the early ones, that was a communication issue. It was two just ran between two of our defenders, and I think they didn't know whose guy that was, and that's why they were like a couple steps behind. It wasn't just pure speed; it was just mental errors. Tyreek said our practices were with Manny were garbage compared to Georgia, so we have a long, long way to go. Listen, man, I've waited how long? 17, 18 years since this team was, not since the last championship, just since this team was good, this team was a contender. We've waited a good like 18 or so years. What's a couple more years? That's my view on it. We need 30 new players, SEC transfer portal linebacker. Yeah, I wouldn't mind a couple of SEC guys. I mean, one of the SEC I think the only SEC transfer we got was Henry Parrish. Look how well he's playing, man. He's our starting running back. Sorry for Alex, what's going on, bro? Sorry for my tardiness. Trying to get ready for the hurricane. Yeah, man. Praying for all the people central northern Florida, especially on the West Coast. They're getting hit hard with that rain and those winds. That hurricane, I think, is supposed to go up to a Cat 4. So thankfully, it seems like the East Coast side of Florida. I'm down in South Florida and Miami. We're kind of getting spared a little bit, but I think we're going to get some of that wind too. But forever, whoever's getting that, man, please stay safe. See, the yips, that's what it's called. I knew there was a word for it. It's called the yips. That's what Knobloch had, that he made that error in, like, I think it was a playoff game or a World Series game, and he literally could not throw the ball to first base. Like, he'd sail it into the crowd every time just because of a thing he had in his brain. Les, what's going on, sir? It was Berlin, not Gross. Yeah, I knew what he meant when he said Grossman. Yeah, he meant Berlin. He meant Brock Berlin. And even with the change in style of offense, because Brock Berlin was used to a spread shotgun style that he ran in high school. That 04 season, his second year, played very well and almost won ACC Player of the Year. I think he tied with another quarterback for it. Do you see any changes on the offensive line? No. Honestly, I think they've been doing a good job. Again, I don't think, some of the sacks and pressures weren't so much on the linemen. It was more like that edge protection with the tight ends and stuff. No, I don't see any changes on the offensive line, honestly. I think they've done overall a solid job this year. And you gotta keep that continuity. Those five guys are just going to gel more and more the more they play. And you gotta ride them out, because some of them are young and they come back next year. So you want that experience coming back next year. Let's see. Tyler will probably start. Jake will come in the second quarter. That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking TBD, see how he does, quarter and a half. If it looks really, really bad, you might see Jake halfway through the first quarter. I think the coach is just going to feel it out. I would say just play straight zone, but I think they'd miscommunicate there too. Yeah, communication is big whether you're playing man or zone, unfortunately. So it's just something they need to fix in a hurry. Hope Zion gets some snaps. Yeah, no, they'll phase him in there for sure. I mean, he's one of your stars. But really, I wouldn't change much more than that. Bergie, as bad as the O has been, I'm more concerned about the D right now. I'm surprised at how MTSU manhandled our D, especially our corners. We can't let NC follow that blueprint. Yeah, we got to be ready for North Carolina to kind of do the same thing, because we've been making, and we've done this for years now, we've been making okay quarterbacks or freshman quarterbacks getting in there for the first time look amazing, except for the Texas A&M quarterback. That was one of the times we showed up and we made him look bad. But the Southern Miss quarterback, I understand he's coming in with a lot of talent, but it's the Southern Miss quarterback. This quarterback on Saturday, we're making them look like Heisman winners. And we've done it for years. So this defense needs to snap out of it. Chase needs to play. I agree, Randy, 100%. I love Chase. Need some athletes on the field, man. And you know what? He's young. There's going to be growing pains. He may miss a few assignments himself, but that's how he learns. He did make plays. I mean, he made some throws that were pretty damn great. Yes. No. The MTSU quarterback, anytime a guy was open down the field, he hit him, and he hit him in perfect stride. Wesley's got to play more. I'm all for that. Chase, Cam, Wes. Don't disagree, but not like 80% of the snaps. You got to get Caleb Johnson in there. You got to, Corey Flagg for the most part has done a pretty good job, but I'm all for, maybe him splitting his snaps with Caleb, because I think for when Corey Flagg does miss an assignment or, he gets caught out of position, I think Caleb Johnson can help clean those up. We had no screens or crossing patterns. I didn't like the route concepts at all, like any of them. And Flo put it perfectly. Like, you're a quarterback, you're dropping back, and when you hit your back foot, no one's turning their head around because the routes are taking too long to develop. Terrible. You can't do that. You got to have a safety valve, right there you can dump it off to. You got to have like a guy in the middle that's running like a 5 to 7 yard route, and then the guy's going deep. That's my opinion. But then again, they do not pay me to be an offensive coordinator. That's not what I do for a living. Any word, and I'll end in the next few minutes. Any word on Logan Sagapolo? Been excited to see him get after it. I haven't heard anything new on him, but again, I like what the O-line's doing, honestly. I like who's out there, and I like to see them continue going. Sagapolo will get in there if, somebody gets nicked up or whatever, which is bound to happen. It's offensive line. It's a very physical position. So, but to answer your question, no, I haven't heard anything new on Sagapolo. But I'm sure he's in that 7-8 man rotation if somebody gets hurt. John speaking secondary. How about Chris Graves, Isaiah Dunson? Is Kamari Rogers still redshirting? Marquise Williams. How about those young guys? Okay. Start with Chris Graves. Well, before I start with Chris Graves, they are playing some young guys. Jaden Harris, I saw him in there. Malik Curtis, I saw him in there. I think Harris did get beat on one of those touchdowns. Again, that was a miscommunication thing. He didn't realize who he was covering. You could tell if you watch it back. So they are playing young guys. They're getting them in there. They're just, coach has said, he said it about Wesley Besaint that, the dude's a beast, but they're just trying. They're trying as fast and as hard as they can to get him up to speed. Because it's one thing being a freak athlete, but if you're not up to speed on what's happening with the playbook and what's happening on the field, you're going to have blown coverages. You're going to have horribly missed assignments. Now, it might be getting to that point where you have to throw a Wes in there for like 15 snaps just to see what he does. But I think some of those guys aren't up to speed yet. I think that's the only reason you're not seeing them. Because remember, these are true freshmen. Like, these are pups. These are babies. But yeah, I wouldn't mind, as the season goes, maybe seeing a little more Chris Graves. I know he's been putting in the extra work. Isaiah Dunson, man, he's one of those that he'll make a great play and then he'll blow a coverage. He's kind of inconsistent. So he's got to earn it. If he's not out there, it's because he hasn't earned it. Kamari Rogers, I know he's probably going to take this year and put some weight on. I know he's got to put on some weight. He's really He was listed as like a $150 something last year. That's way too small. Very talented, super, super talented is Kamari Rogers. I can't wait to see him next year. But he's a guy that he's going to take a while, and he also had that serious injury in high school that he had to overcome. So let him kind of rehab from that. And then who else? Marquise Williams. I think you'll see a little Marquise Williams later in the season. John, good point. Everyone keeps calling for screens. What wide receiver, tight end blocking that screen? Outside of Arroyo and maybe like one or two receivers, blocking has not been good by the receivers and tight ends. It just hasn't. And look, I really like Will Mallory, and I think he could still have a big season receiving wise. They're putting him out there way too much to block, in my opinion. It's not his game. And I think the other defenses recognize that because they'll see him on the field and they'll pressure that side a little bit more. I think they know he's a bit of a liability in the blocking game. So either he's got to get better at blocking in a hurry, or he just can't be out there, because when you're a liability blocking, same with running backs, you can't be out there too much because they kind of know you're kind of telegraphing what you're going to do. I heard GT is interested in Gaddis. We'll see how the year turns out, man. It's still too early for that. National Canes, Skinner going to be good. Yes, that's definitely a guy I want to see more of. If you're looking for a red zone threat, a red zone target, a guy with some size and some hands, there's your guy. I realize he's a freshman, but I think he's one of those outliers, man. I think he's one of those guys that's gonna, like you said, I think he's gonna be great. Actually, I see a lot of potential in Jaleel Skinner. He reminds me a little bit of Njoku. He reminds me a little bit of, I know he's a Gator, but he's kind of got that Kyle Pitts physique, that Kyle Pitts, makeup as a tight end. Blocking on the line is a lot better than blocking in space. He got that swing pass blown up for a loss. Yeah, I saw him. I did see him whiff on one. But I love Arroyo's blocking overall. He straight pancakes dudes. I love him as like an H-back kind of guy. But you got to use him in the passing game more too. He's so talented. We have missed assignments already by older players. Might as well let young players mess up. That was my argument last year, but it's a catch-22 for Mario, man. You got to be careful when you do that, because once you take out an older guy for a younger guy, you got to kind of be strategic how you do it, man, because you don't want to kind of lose that older player, and then he stops playing hard for you because he feels you kind of did him dirty. So his job in rebuilding this is not easy. You got to take all that into account. But anyway, guys, I think we'll stop there. 58 minutes in. Got 47 on the chat right now. I think we hit like 51 at one point. But I appreciate you guys for coming on. Listen to me talk some Canes. And thank you, Brendan Tobin, earlier for coming on. It was great to have him. I've been a fan of his for years. And I know some of you guys are fans of his stuff. So go check him out. Yes, I want to see Jaleel Skinner myself. Yeah. No, I think we're going to see more Skinner and more Arroyo for sure. Again, Mario's big on accountability. I don't think he's going to go too long with guys that are just not going to perform well. It's not going to be the Manny Diaz syndrome of just leave them out there for a year and a half because those are my guys. No, I don't think you're going to see that as much. But yes, anyway, I digress. Thank you guys again for coming on. I will be on later. Well, no, I will not do a pregame show this week because it's a bye week. So I will see you guys next week for my regular Tuesday hour. And before I go, I know I teased something with the Dolphins helmet earlier. I've been thinking about this for a while. I'm soon going to pull the trigger. I haven't decided when yet, but with the excitement of Dolphins football happening right now, and I am a huge Miami sports fan. Dolphins, Panthers, Heat, Marlins. Yes, I said Marlins, unfortunately. I'm a fan of all of them. Canes baseball, Canes basketball. I've always wanted to eventually cover all those things. That's kind of where I saw this channel heading one day. And I think little by little, I may start doing that. Maybe start giving you guys a little Dolphins content on certain nights. We'll see when I start rolling that out, but it's going to be soon. I just wanted to kind of plug that real quick. I haven't decided if it's just going to be a brand new channel altogether or just like a weekly show I kind of do to cover the Dolphins, since we're in football season and there's excitement around the team for once, thank God. So I'll let you know. I'll let you know what'll happen there. But as always, it's all about the you. Thank you guys for the support. Have a good night. Take care.